I'm Oliver Pickard and welcome to my workshop in beautiful Limousin, France. In last week's video we made this roll bar, which is an integral part of Pandora's chassis. Pandora is my lovely little Cox GTM that will eventually be powered by this Honda K20A under this dust sheet. And like I say, in last week's video we made this roll bar. If you haven't watched that video, there's a link to it there. Now, in this week's video, we are continuing the roll cage forward and down, as well as creating a crossbar at the bottom of the chassis to make sure this doesn't move. And that will form the basis of what will become our roll cage. Because the simplest roll cage on the planet is a roll bar and then your forward pieces, and everything after that is an added extra bar. But that'll give us all our dimensions and it'll hold our body from flexing and moving while we make the chassis and everything else. Okay, let's get cracking, shall we? In last week's video, when I showed you the roll bar, I was a little bit hesitant to upload that video without clearancing the body properly. I just did it enough to get the roll bar in. Obviously there's a big difference between a cardboard template and an actually fabricated 3D tube. But I spent a couple of hours last night and I've got it all lined up and I'm really happy with how it's turned out. It fits the body line beautifully. It doesn't stick out like a roll bar on a Toyota 4Runner. You know, it doesn't look like it should have big halo lamps on top, although I could do. It actually fits the body line beautifully, and it looks like it was always supposed to be there, and I'm really happy with the result. It looks now how it did in my head before I started making it. So I know I'm on the right track. It still needs a little bit more work, but until we fabricate some more of the roll cage, I can't actually get it to fit just as I want it. But it's really close and I'm really happy. Also, the body's really flexy at the minute and stuff. So this is as good as I can get it for now. Obviously the body's quite wonky, being repaired and stuff, and I will sort all that out in good time. But for now, this is showing the way forward, shall I say. So before I do the forward parts of the roll cage from the roll bar itself, I want to make sure that the roll bar is stable and not going to move or twist or anything, and is completely square. Because the last thing that you want is, when you start tacking things up, is any sort of twisting or anything like that. So we're going to put a piece along the bottom like this, and I've chopped it to length, and now what I need to do is use my tube notcher. Now what a tube notcher does is it basically cuts the round in the piece of steel, because obviously that isn't going to mate up to another round without a slice taken out. And I made mine in a video, and if you'd like to watch that video, there's a link there. So, to the tube notcher. So you might be wondering how I got this angle. The way that we did it is we made this roll bar level completely, and then I got a block of wood, so I stood it up like that. I got a block of wood, put the block of wood underneath, I put this crossbar on, I made the crossbar level, obviously longer than this. We marked it, put a piece of tape around it, marked the angle, and then I brought it over to my drill press, put it in the drill press, and then used a straight edge with the Starrett drill hole saw and the line on the piece of masking tape, and then adjusted the base of the pillar drill until both of them lined up, and then that's your perfect level. And I did a bit of test tubing first, and it was bomb. So then I just knocked it out. Easy. It's easy once you've figured out how to do it. And this is the first one of these that I've ever done using using a hole saw and the proper tools to do it. In the old days, what I would have done is I would have marked it out. I would have got another piece of tubing like this. I would have placed it on at the right angle, and I would have drawn round it on put a piece of masking tape around the tube, drawn round it, and then I would have cut it off with a hacksaw, sliced into it in sections, and then used a round file to notch it out. And that's the way that you do it if you don't have a tubing notcher, and you can get exactly the same result. The only difference is it takes about half an hour per notch rather than 5 minutes. But you can actually notch tubing like this and do this job without a hole saw and without a pillar drill and without a tubing notcher. But I made my own tubing notcher for free, as you know. And hole saws aren't that expensive, and if you do have the luxury of having a workshop and having space, even if it's just a garden shed, then you definitely need to invest in a pillar drill because they're brilliant. So it just shows that with very simple tools you can get, I've put it in upside down now, with really simple tools you can get really, really good results. All this needs now is tacking up, and it can go in the car. I'm not going to seam weld anything yet. We're going to get it all in, we're going to get it all leveled, and we're going to tack it all in and tack each thing at a time as we go. And then once we've got everything together and everything tacked up, that's when you weld, when it's a finished product. Because if you just weld when it's your first thing and you mess up or whatever, for whatever reason, it's really easy to break a tack, but it's really difficult. You'd have to scrap the whole thing and start again if you seam welded it. So when you're making something like this, just once you get it in place, just tack it and then move on to your next tubes and do your next tubes, and then when it's all finished, that's when you weld it. Right, I can get this in now and start doing my my top tubes. Conventional European roll cage thinking dictates that the way that you join the rear main hoop to the front of the car is you have a bar that comes down here like that and then down like a leg. That's okay in your average monocoque or a hatchback or a saloon, but it doesn't really work in Pandora. And the reason is there's a massive offset between this point here to this point here. The tube would have to come out, bend down here and then down there. That's very hard to do with any pipe bender, even a digital pipe bender. Never mind my homemade pipe bender. And it wouldn't fit very well in the car. It would be very difficult to get this side and this side absolutely perfect. But the Americans have the answer, because American racing cars have removable bodies, of course. I'm talking about sprint and dirt track oval cars and even NASCARs in America, where the bodies are actually removable from the chassis of the car. They use something called a halo bar, and a halo bar runs all the way around, and it's a continuous hoop made of one piece of tubing, and it joins the rear main hoop just the same. And then you have separate legs that come down and down on either side. This is much easier to make with my pipe bender, and because I can actually remove the body from Pandora, I can get a halo bar in. That's why we don't use them in Europe very often, because our cars being monocoque, you'd never get this halo bar into your average, Honda Civic or Renault Megane. So I'm taking advantage of my removable body and making the safest possible roll cage I can that fits as tight as possible into the body. So let's make a halo bar, shall we? So if you didn't know, the reason why I use a template like this that's only half of the car is if you do both sides in your template, it's easy for this side of your template to be slightly different to the other side, and then when you put your roll cage in, it's wonky. Whereas if you use the same template on both sides as a mirror image, you know that this angle is exactly the same. And they're both as wonky as each other, and then that way it's all even and level and works amazingly. I'm quite good at this stuff because as a young lad I learned how to do radar arches on boats and stuff like that. And when you're doing the frames for the tops of boats or parasailing boats or anything like that, you've learned very quickly that you can't use a spirit level and that nothing's straight because the boats themselves are not straight. The first time I ever made a radar arch, I made it in a jig on a table, all clamped down and all perfect and all square and all level. And then I went to put it on the boat, and this particular boat was made in Taiwan, I believe. And I put it on the roof, and it was like that. Because the thing that I was bolting it to was nowhere near square, straight, level, anything. So you learn very quickly to adapt to these situations. Same thing in a classic house like this. Nothing's square, nothing's straight, nothing's level. And so when things are square, straight and level, it makes life much easier. So this is my halo bar. And the way this fits in the car, it fits inside like that. That's really heavy tall, but it fits inside like that and then attaches at the rear. And then now what I've got to do, I've got to check that it all fits inside, which takes multiple people because it's very heavy. And then I can make some legs. So after a fettle and a tweak, the halo bar fits inside Pandora perfectly. My next job is to notch these tubes, just like we did the lower bar, and then tack it all together. Once I've done that, I can start on the lower tubes and the knee bar, but that is going to be for next week's video. The reason for that is these notches are on a jaunty angle, so I really need to get them right, and I'm very tired now. And one of my golden rules of the workshop is to never work when I'm tired, because the chances of me getting something wrong and making a very expensive mistake or losing a finger go up astronomically when I'm tired. So I'm going to go in now and I'm going to have a hot shower and I'm going to put my feet up and relax, because it's holidays after all. So thank you all for watching. If you are loving these videos, if you're enjoying these videos, if you're finding these videos in any way entertaining, please make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. It's completely free and it's free tele every single Friday, but only 25% of the people who watch these videos are subscribed. If you all subscribe today, I'll love you forever. But on top of that, it will really, really make my year. So thank you all for supporting this channel. If you have any comments and questions, I'm always willing to answer every single one of them. Please be awesome to each other, and I'll see you all in the next video when we'll have a freestanding roll cage. It'll be awesome, and I'll be able to sit inside it and make car noises. Because it's finally starting to, it doesn't look like a car, it's a pile of tubes, but it will look like a car, I promise. Very soon, hopefully. I hope it does as much as you do. Alright, bye bye, I'm tired.